Well, first off today, I want to think about just general office, I suppose, etiquette that we would have in an office as draft persons and building designers. We, we're seen by the general public as professional people. I think drafters are kind of often regarded, and we're in the trade school at the uni here. But we're not particularly regarded as tradespeople by the general public. We're regarded more in that group of architects, engineers, because that's generally who you're working for, and you're working in their office. So we really want to think about how we act as professionals, I think I spoke before about how, just simple things like answering the telephone in the office. Don't tell them like I did that the boss has gone home with a headache. Tell them the boss is out on site. I will get him to call you later. But what's the correct procedures there? And one of the questions in our that we might be looking at sets out some scenarios. So let's have a general chit-chat about those scenarios and see what we would do in those instances. So one of the first ones is you're working as a drafter in an office under supervision. So the client has emailed directly and requested some project documents to be forwarded. So you may be new to the office, maybe you don't know much about what's going on in the project. Maybe you're working in the office for years, but you've just jumped on this project yesterday and you don't really know much about what the project itself is about. So how should you proceed? What's best practice in that scenario? Anyone hazard a guess? You've just got an email.
Project manager?
Talk to the project manager, yeah. Well, I suppose one of the first things we do in an office, step one, we always email the client back. We email the client back whether they've emailed us, whether they've called us on the telephone, whether they've walked into the office requesting documents. We email everything. And this goes not only for clients requesting documents, but other engineers and consultants requesting documents. Builder ringing you up from site saying, can you tell me, what the floor level difference is between two different parts of the building? Do we just say, oh, it's 120 mil and put the phone down? Never. Never, ever, ever. In a drafting office, we reply to everything in writing. Why? Proof, evidence that we gave that advice out. If we don't have that evidence in writing, then it might as well not have existed. And you will get the blame when the builder sets the slab 120 mil off the other slab and it's wrong, or, you were supposed to say 150 mil, or, you said 120 mil, but he did it at 100 mil, and now there's a problem on site. Where's the evidence that you told him the 120 mil? Oh, it was a phone call. I just said it verbally. It's no good. It's no good at all. Same thing if you go to site and you give any advice out on site, you come back to the office, you write it in an email, you send it to them. It might look like you're doing the work twice, you probably are, but you've got it in writing and it's your evidence, it's your backup. So let's get back to the scenario of the emails come through asking for the latest set of documents for, lot number 6572. What should you do? First, email the client. We've received your request for documentation. We will be in touch shortly. I will speak to the project manager and confirm the latest set. So email the client immediately saying that the request will be actioned. Okay, you've received the request and you're going to action it. Okay, and who might you CC in on that email then? The supervisor, the manager, yeah, absolutely, because you want to let them know that the request has come in as well. So whoever is the project lead, we often talk in the offices, so-and-so is the project lead on this one, and it's usually the engineer or the designer. The architect will be the project lead. And they may not always be in the office. They're usually quite busy people. They could be out on site. They could be at other meetings. They're not always there for you to just say, hang on a second, I'll just find out from my supervisor. It's often a much, more delayed procedure than that. And you never issue drawings without, consent or permission from within the office. You don't just turn around, attach them all to the email and send them off and, no transmittal, no sort of evidence that that's the drawing set. It causes huge confusion in documentation if you do that, so there are office procedures that you must follow. So step one, email client back, your request will be actioned. Step two, CC the supervisor in on the request. And step three, confirm with your supervisor. if how they would like you to proceed. That's basically it. It's open-ended. There could be a million things they'd like you to do. They might say, you're allowed to send out the, latest version of the architecturals, but don't send the structurals. We don't want them going yet. There could be lots of different reasons for the supervisor to withhold drawings. He could be say, you can send out the plans, but still got some work to do on those sections, so don't send them out in the condition they're in. So you'll often get lots of different advice. So as I said, the next talks about as well, if that request comes in with a phone call or an email, regardless. With phone call, you take their email address, but the same thing, you're confirming with an email back to them that you have received the request. That's very important. Clients don't want to make phone calls requesting drawings and then not hear anything for a week. You need to email them back on the day your request is received. Okay? Next scenario, Jazz is an architecture. Oh, sorry, Adrian. Yeah, so you can just basically have a look through the questions there. We're looking at, further down these different scenario ones. Yeah, 81. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the other one there, you have a drafter in an office. He's a valued member of the team. And the client called him requesting some hard copy project documents. What do we mean by hard copy? Paper. They're in paper format. They're not soft copies. We can't email them anywhere. He said it was urgent and insisted that he come and collected the printed documents in an hour. What should you do? Very firm but polite. Again, you're going to email him back and you're going to say that you're going to sort of have a brief summary of what the telephone conversation was about. You have requested XXX drawings, you CC your supervisor as well, and then you ask the supervisor how you would like to proceed. I would also be advising the client at that point not to call into the office within an hour, because the chances are you won't have got a chance to get permissions and everything ready from your supervisor in that regard. So you're just going to say that the request will be actioned, and you will speak to your supervisor. The next scenario is a drafter in an office, and a client delivered some hard copy original structural drawings and structural design certificates. Section 40, certificates for design. What would you do? So sometimes offices have people called document controllers who will give you advice on this. More often than not, the drafter is the document controller, and it's up to you to decide what you're going to do. So what would you do? You got this, could be A1 drawings, you got a big bundle of them under your arm, and you're walking back from reception going, what the heck am I going to do with all these? So what do you think?
You've got to check them before you even take them.
Yeah, what should you check them against?
So I cross-check title block, project number, naming conventions, etc. against documents that we've already got, or naming conventions we've already got in place. You don't know what the project necessarily is.
Yeah, no you don't. And these could be a set of structural drawings of an existing building or something like that. So you're not necessarily going to bring them into your drawing set. You might just be using them for information.
Yeah, you still need to check it all and make sure that it's got all of the information.
So if you're sending out a set of drawings, what should you send with it? So a transmittal. If you're receiving a set of drawings, what should you receive with it? Yeah. So, yeah. First thing I would do is check my drawings against the transmittal. Okay. So you want to make sure you've got all of the drawings that the transmittal says you're getting. That's a list of drawings on there. You want to check the job number, the drawing number, the revision number, the version numbers of those drawings against the transmittal you got. You want to make sure you got the correct copies as what they said you've got. Sometimes projects have a document register where you might register it in. So a document register is basically, again, a list of documents and maybe where they're kept in the office. You know, that's generally all it is. It's a bit of a guideline to tell you this drawing is kept in the hanging files. This drawing is kept in the job file number in the filing cabinet, you know, so you know where to put them. And then you would simply just, so you might, Optional, you might create a digital copy of the drawings. Would that be advisable to do? What's paper copy at the minute? How good is paper copy to us? What can we do with it? Read it? Read it and get some information off it? What can we do with it if it's in PDF? Import it into our CAD files. We can use it as a background in our drawings, so it's much more valuable to us as a digital file. So we might, in terms of wanting to be able to use the information digitally, we would scan it and save it as a PDF. Or we might just want to scan it so that we can file it digitally, you know, so we can keep it we've got a hard copy that we need to hang on to. Or sometimes the client will say, I want those originals back, you know. So your job might be just simply to scan them, make PDF copies and, you know, send them an email saying your drawings are ready to collect. Don't leave original copies of files, of drawings around the office unfiled. Please don't do that. Often clients will want those drawings back and you won't be able to find them. Yes, some companies do, yeah. The office I worked in for a long time had an A1 scanner. We would run them through and scan them into PDF. Yep. Yep. So it's a plotter, but it scans as well. Yep. Yeah, so that's basically the protocol for that. And you might you know, ask your supervisor, of course, what does he want you to do with the hard copy? Does he want you to return to the client? Does he want them, where are they going to be kept? And fill out a document register for their location of where they're going to be stored. Next scenario, the supervisor has asked to retrieve some hard copy documents from the filing cabinet. What would you do? You've been asked by your supervisor, go get me the hard copy. Apart from just going and getting it, which is the obvious. Tell them to go get it themselves. Quite like that one. So if you've got a document controller in the office, they're the person in charge of all the files, right? And the last thing you want is that, you know, you go and take the hard copy files out and you, I don't know, use them on a project, leave them on your desk, you know, hide them under the supervisor's desk. Nobody knows where they are anymore.
I usually take a scan of it and get it printed myself in A3 or something.
Print it out yourself again?
Yeah.
Possible, yep, absolutely. If you're going to be working with the drawings themselves, that's a really good idea. Because, again, as I said, hard copy originals are actually really valuable drawings.
Put it back in the case. The procedure was
Mm.
to take it out, scan it, get a copy for yourself, and then put the original back.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we usually use those document registers, and often you'll have a filing cabinet in the office. The office I used to work in had lots of filing cabinets with all the project files in there. If you wanted to take a project file out of the filing cabinet, we literally had on the top of it lots of old used project folders, and you would cross out the last name on that project folder. You would simply write your name on it and put it in place of where the file that you were taking out was. So the job number and your name and in there. So if somebody else comes looking for it, what do they find? Folder with your name on it. Yeah, and now I know who has the file. If you don't put that there, like, guys, if you're working in an office with 3-4 people, this isn't a problem. You literally go, who's got the file? But when you're working in offices with 40 and 50 people and they've taken the file out, somebody's taken the file out and they've gone on leave for 2 weeks and they've left the file under their desk, how are you supposed to find the file and how is the job supposed to progress?
Yeah, we go to in and out sign-in sheets as well that we have to sign.
Yeah. So in and out sign-in sheets are generally known as document registers, okay? So there's lots of different systems of having a document register. And like Juan said, there could be on top of the filing cabinet just a sign-in, sign-out sheet that you need to be using when you remove any hard copy files from a filing cabinet or hanging files. You need to be letting the rest of the office know that that file is in your possession. One of the most common emails that used to go around the office I worked in was, who's got job number? And that was literally the email that would go around a couple of times a day. And this was in quite a well-organised office where there were systems in place for all of this. But it's a regular thing. We're all working with the files, and you could have multiple people wanting access to that file. Yeah, read only. Yes, that can happen too. That can happen too. So, you know, I suppose that's the difference between hard copy and digital copies of things. Digital copies, we're all on networked systems. We're all able to access folders on there and look at different documents in there. You know, as you said, if somebody has a file open, you might have a problem getting into it, but hopefully they haven't been done that and left the files open while they've gone off on leave. You know, with a hard copy file, there's just one copy. Generally speaking, offices don't keep multiple copies of hard copies of the drawings. There's one copy, and you need to let other people know if you've removed it. And usually we put the date of removal on there. Next scenario we're looking at, so this drafter has a role as a document controller. So there could be, it's a smaller office, there's no need to hire a dedicated document controller. Even in large offices, I've never actually worked in an office that had a dedicated document controller. It really is up to the people working on the file, to everyone to do their bit to work as a team. So one day he's doing his regulatory monitoring of the filing cabinet and he noticed that there were some very important hard copy documents missing. What should he do? What's the first document you might go to if the file was missing? If you went to the file and there's just nothing there, no file. Document register. Check the document register. Who's got the file? Has the removal of that file been logged on the document register? If the documents have been logged as removed, what information will you have? Who's got it? You'll have the name of the last person requesting the documents. You can go directly to that person and check with them. Have they still got that file? What happens if you go to that person and they say, I put the file back last week? I didn't cross my name off the register and I didn't mark it that I logged it back in, but I did put it back in the filing cabinet. What next? Well, generally there's an email that goes around to the whole office going, has anybody got file number? And you check with everyone in the office. If the answer comes back that it's still no, nobody can find the file. The file is well and truly missing. Remember, this is a hard copy file. Might you have a digital file?
Yeah, so we're all right with it being missing at this stage?
We're all right with it. Well, we're not really all right. We're in a bit of a flap. The whole file is missing.
So we've got to move on?
Well, we've got to move on. We've got to find a solution to this. Print it. We locate the digital files and we replace the hard copy files from our digital files. Remembering our digital filing system is backing up that hard copy file all the time. So you locate the digital drawings and print and replace the file. Next scenario. Jacqueline's a drafter. One day she was given a stack of new A3 hard copy drawings and instructed her to file them according to their disciplines. How do you think she can identify the discipline for each drawing? Prefix. What do we mean by prefix? Where is the prefix? What is that called? Where would you find the prefix?
On the drawing title.
On the drawing title sheet, yeah, but what's it called? What's that number called? Is it called the project number? Will she find it in the project number? No? Drawing number. The drawing number. When we number drawings, we number from architectural. What's the prefix for architectural? Andy, what's the prefix for structural? So we just said the prefix for architectural drawings. When we do the drawing number, we've been calling our drawing numbers 2018 CDU A001, A002, A003, and so forth. What is the prefix for structural drawings? S for structural drawings. David, what's the prefix for mechanical drawings? What was that? M, yeah, M001 to whatever it takes. Electrical, Adriana? E for electrical. Hydraulics? H, yeah, fantastic. What about civil, Despina? Civil?
Oh, civil. Hold on, sorry, I'm flash up to my head.
That's structural in your head. Trying to think of a few more. Landscaping? L. L for landscaping, generally. If you see L, it's for landscaping. What else might we have? Sometimes you see X there. X is generally just used for cover sheets, maybe some 3D images. Yeah, not particularly a discipline, just other sheets that you might have in a drawing set.
There was one set that we had out yesterday that had, like, just about everything was there.
Yeah.
They had a group, it had architecture,
Yep.
and then it had X 1 through 28. Structural, X.
Yeah, well, that's because somebody hasn't put in the drawing numbers on the sheet. That's not how they're actually supposed to be there. They just haven't edited them. The default is often X on a cover sheet or something like that. Yeah, I think we've covered most of them. So, yes, let me see, where was I there?
So yeah, just ask, how would you identify them? And then what should you do?
Well, what should she do?
Sort accordingly.
Sort them into their discipline, either their folder on a hard copy file or a folder on a digital file. Of course, when you receive drawings, what should you be updating? Document register, updating the document register. We've received these drawings, they're now in our care. They need to be on our document register. They're hard copies, what else might you do? Any suggestions, Bridget?
Sorry, say it again?
They're hard copy files, you've received them,
Yeah.
and you're going to log them in the document register, and you're going to file them accordingly under the discipline numbers. What else might you do? Scan them and save them as digital copies as well. It's always good to have a digital copy of anything you receive in hard copy. If it gets lost, if it goes missing, if it, disappears onto somebody's desk, you've got a digital copy, when the file goes missing, that you can then print them out again. Also, we want digital copies. Why? What's the second reason we might want digital copies, Andy? Just talked about it a minute ago. What can we do with digital copies that we can't do with hard copies?
Scan.
We can scan it, yeah. So when we scanned it, it's now become a digital copy of the drawing. Why is that useful to us in a drafting office? One crucial point. David, can you help us out? What can we do with a digital file that we can't do with a hard copy file?
Email, putting the drawings.
Thank you. Both of those are correct, actually. We can email them on if we need to. And most importantly, we can start importing it as a PDF into our drawing files. So it becomes useful to us in terms of saving us some time on drafting. Okay. All right, let's do some brainstorming then. If we wanted to identify drawings and it didn't have the correct prefix on the drawing number, what other ways could we identify, let's say, a survey drawing? We just had a surveyor in here a couple of weeks ago and he was showing us some survey drawings. What's on the survey drawing that might be, that you would immediately look at it and go, that's a survey drawing, as opposed to that's a structural drawing or that's a hydraulics drawing?
Contour lines. Contour
lines would be a great one. Anything else?
Bearings.
Bearings, yep. Yeah, well, I said if it was missing the prefix, if we didn't have that drawing number to go by, we literally had to just look at the drawing properties itself, what's on that drawing. How would you be able to say that's a survey drawing, that's a civil drawing, Yeah, I'm more thinking about features of the actual plan or whatever. Datum point would be a really good one for a survey. Yeah, we just generally don't see datum points on other drawing types other than the survey.
The scale can also give away a little bit.
Nah.
Because it will be like 1, 2.
The larger scale, like, or going up to the higher numbers, yes, perhaps, because, yeah.
You could probably look at the company.
Think about, you've all been doing, no, I'm trying to get away from the title block here.
Okay.
I'm going into the drawing itself, and you've all been doing some survey drawings, and you all have a site analysis checklist. Start thinking about what's on that checklist, what identifies survey or site drawings. Lot numbers, addresses. some symbols, yeah, certainly some of the symbols that we see, you know, if you had like a spot level or something like that and it had the little triangle for the spot level, you know, those sorts of features are on there. Yeah? Could readily identify that as a survey drawing. Let's have a think about hydraulics drawings. What features might we see on a hydraulics drawing? I know you don't have much exposure to this, but we will be looking at this in the coming units. But a hydraulics drawing, what is hydraulics? Anything to do with water. Yeah, incoming water, cold and hot water supplies in a building, and it's also to do with the discharge of that. So our sewage, and we generally don't put storm water on there. That's more like a civil drawing that we'd see storm water on. Sorry? Wastewater, any sort of wastewater. Yep, yeah, absolutely. Say that louder. The ledger, yeah, that's a great way to identify drawings, actually. That's probably one of the first places I personally would look at. I'd start looking at any sort of index or legend that was on a drawing, and immediately from a legend I'm fairly well able to see what type of drawing that is. So if we were thinking about a hydraulics drawing and a legend that was on that, what sort of features would a hydraulics drawing have? Pipes?
We'll definitely have a lot of symbols to do with water, like taps and...
So fixtures and fittings, I think you're talking about there, are you? The actual, you know, where the pipes are going to, so we can have wash-hand basins and toilets and baths and showers and water meter, certainly might be one. No, it might. If it was very detailed, it might. Yeah. So also, you know, remember when we're doing our site plans again, what do we have just on the site boundaries? What are they called? Or we? What do you get when you have a new site in terms of water supply? What do you get?
You get the main water.
You get mains water, yeah. What? It does depend on where your block is. So there'll be a lot less features on a rural block.
The water mains and water meters.
So the water mains is the pipeline. The water meter is where that pipeline, the public service pipeline ends at the water meter. And what happens at the water meter? Do we just connect into the water meter? This is my connect symbol. So we have water that comes to here and we need to come down to that water meter and put our new pipework in there. So we'd call that connection points. So we'd also always see connection points on a, you know, where there's main services meeting private, internal on your site, your own water pipes on the site. So you know that again from doing your site survey drawings, that we have lots of different connection points that will be there. Can we name a few connection points? What connection points will you have for hydraulics? You just set them in into. Well, no, I'm talking about connecting to the mains. What's the two main connection points? Yeah, ingoing, outgoing. What's the incoming? Cold water, the water mains. That's the incoming water mains, cold water. What's outgoing? Sewage, yeah. Wastewater, but we generally call it sewer. Yeah, so if you saw on a drawing you saw sewer pipes and you saw water pipes, would that tell you, and connection points for the same, would that tell you it was hydraulics drawing? Not necessarily, but it could be just a site plan. When we're like down to, you know, just domestic construction, all of that information tends to go on just the one site plan. When we get into bigger developments, we tend to separate that out, and that's where you get those layers of drawings. You get architectural and structural and hydraulics and electrical. And generally, then once you have that sort of other discipline system, that information gets transferred over onto the hydraulics drawings. Yeah? Yeah.
Labeling of drawings, little, what do you call it, like your leading and stuff like that. Probably a few words that are dead giveaways.
Yeah.
Hot water.
Text. Yeah, absolutely. The text will always be in there. The text describing the elements that you would see. But in your answer, I really need you to say what that might say. You know, saying that it's just text referring to whatever it's referring to. What about hot water? What might you see? Solar. Yeah, you might look at on the roof plan and spot a solar system. That would pretty much tell me it was a hydraulics drawing as well. An inspection opening somewhere, manholes, all those connection points, like I said. Who knows, and Kissy will know this, what's a RS? Goes up and down. It goes up and down. Water doesn't always go in the ground horizontally. Water also has to get up and down in the building. What do we call that?
Reticulation.
No, that's not reticulation. The riser. It's called a riser. The water pipe that goes up or down is called a riser. Yeah. Rising shaft, we might say on a drawing. There may be a void somewhere in the building to house pipe work that's going up and down, carrying water. You often see riser shafts in stairwells and lifts on bigger buildings where they're bringing water up and down because that's really got a vertical corridor going on, and that's where you might house those sorts of things. What might you find on the floor in your laundry or your bathroom?
Drain.
What did you say? Yeah, what's it called? What?
What's it, drainage?
What's that little thing called in the middle of your bathroom on the floor? What's the official name for it?
Floor waste.
Floor waste. Floor waste. It's not called a drain, it's called a floor waste. When you've got a sewage system and you really don't want your toilet to stink, what do we put on a sewer system to prevent that happening? A breather. What's another name for a breather?
G-pot.
What?
How do they say like that?
What is the name? I don't know.
Breather pipe.
Breathing pipe.
Is
It ventilates the system.
that the thing that was sticking right up?
Yeah. Often, yeah, you'll see them. Yeah. It's usually called a vent pipe. Pretty simple. Breather pipe is also another name for breather or vent pipe.
Does that also prevent so methane doesn't build up?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
It's not working.
What do you do if it's not working? Or find the blockage. There must be something not working in the system.
Sorry?
There'll be bubbles up through your toilet, oil sitting on
Methane.
If there's methane.
all the gas can't escape, so it's working around the
Yeah.
Yeah, what if it's coming out of that one?
It's connected to your sewer system on your site.
But it smells in the bathroom.
It mightn't be built correctly in the first place if that's a ongoing issue.
Pipe, you're on a, septic.
Who can tell me what the initials ORG on a drawing refer to? ORG. Org. You know this too. Everyone has one at their house. It's really, you see ads on TV. It says in the event of storms or lots of rain, they go, make sure you don't have a plant pot on top of this. Overflow. Or
Rain gutter?
relief, because it gives relief to the system in the event of flooding. So what happens is that in case the main system floods, so what happens if you've got a pipe, right? You've got a pipe system everywhere and it starts to flood. What happens with water? It pushes back up through the system. Where is it going to come out if you don't have an ORG? Toilet, sink, shower in your house. That's everybody on the street sewage in your house. This is a vital element of a sewerage system. It's called an overflow relief gully. What it does is it creates an opening outside your house on the system so that if the public system starts to back up, it will overflow in your yard as opposed to coming into your house. That's the basis. Everyone has one. If you've got a plant pot on top of it, remove it. don't let anybody concrete over it. It serves a really vital purpose, and you'll know all about it if it happens to you.
Not use it as a drain.
Yeah, it's not a drain. It's not, it is connected to the sewage system.
It's connected to the system.
Yeah, but it's not for storm water to go into.
I'm pretty sure I've got a water, that's right.
Often that is designed by people because they see it as, well, the water will drain away into the sewage system. And to be fair, you know, unless you know, like if you put a normal drain in there, you're going to connect that to your sewage system as well. What we definitely don't want to see over an ORG is storm water. So don't put your gutter pipe coming down nicely down the wall over your ORG. You're putting all the storm water, which should go to the street and get collected into the stormwater system. It definitely doesn't. You don't want it to be going into the sewer system. Why don't we want stormwater going into the sewer system? It just doesn't have the capacity for it. So we want to separate our waste, and stormwater is actually relatively clean water. It's rainwater. It's just fallen from the sky, hit a roof, and gone down through a gutter. That's all it's done. It hasn't gone through your toilet, or it hasn't gone through your body, and it hasn't gone, you know, through any of the systems in the house. It's just coming from the sky, and we want to get that onto the street, whether that be a subsoil system or above ground, run onto the street and be collected into the stormwater system. Where does the stormwater go? Straight out to the ocean. Is it treated? No. We don't need to treat it. It's quite clean. What happens to your sewer water? Goes to a treatment facility. It's everything that's kind of nasty, and we can't just pump that into the sea, although some places still do. Yeah, we really do want that to go to the treatment plant. So if we're starting to send if we're collecting our storm water through an ORG, where are we sending it? To the treatment plant in the sewer system, and it doesn't need to be treated. So no downpipes into ORGs. Tap I can probably forgive, but definitely not stormwater.
Probably not outside running your tap while the storm happens.
Probably not. No, hopefully not. Yeah. The yard should be getting a good power wash by nature. Yeah. So those are basically the features of the hydraulics drawings. The next set there is about what might you typically see on a fire or safety set of drawings, and I know this isn't something we've looked at in terms of a separate set of drawings, but we have talked about it earlier in the year, but let's talk in general here. If you're in an office and somebody comes in and lays a bunch of drawings on the table and you have no idea what discipline they are, what might you see on a fire drawing?
Alarm.
Smoke alarm. What other kind of alarm might you have? There's a couple of different kinds of alarms.
Pressure alarms.
Smoke, heat alarms, heat sensitive, pressure alarms, so all of your different detecting systems.
Sprinkler systems.
Sprinkler systems, you would definitely see. You generally only have a separate set of drawings if there is a sprinkler system, to be fair. Fire extinguisher locations, absolutely.
You have exit signs.
Exit signs, fantastic. That's pretty much everything I was looking for. You might have paths of travel. So when you get into bigger buildings, often on drawings we have to indicate what is the path of travel from different parts of the building. So if in the event of fire, how do people exit that and come back to the NCC thinking about corridor widths and width of stairs and all of those things. So you might see them on a fire drawing as well. Yeah. Oh yeah, they are up on the wall. Yeah, absolutely. But you might see them on the actual documentation as well, because somebody somewhere has done those calculations as to where all the paths of travel are. That's about all I have for that. What is a document, register, or log? We've spoken about that a little bit today. So what is it? What's a document register or a document log? It's basically a list, isn't it? It's a list. And what is it a list of? Yeah, so it's a list of drawings or documents. It can be for anything. You'll have document registers are in every type of office ever known to man, but in terms of what we do as drafters, it's generally a list of documents. It's not the transmittal, not to be confused with the transmittal. It is a document log of where drawings are stored, okay? and it might typically have sign in, sign out facilities somewhere on the list, and it might also tell you where a document is stored. Right, when we've done that, we're going to have a look at a document that's in your OneDrive. I did download it before. It is called Storage and Archiving. So we've recently looked at, let's talk about archiving first. We've recently, I suppose in this unit we looked at, the first day we looked at the beginning of a project and the contract and, all those things that needed to be in place in the beginning. And then we looked at the procedures during a project at all the various stages where we're issuing drawings and filling out that transmittal form. And looked at version control and the numbering and the job numbering and the drawing numbering. Now we get to the end of a project. What sort of systems do you think might be in place in an office at the end of a project? Archiving, yeah. So when we close a job, we spoke a couple of weeks ago about how long should you keep the records of a job, and I would say forever in terms of drawings. Buildings last forever. It's not quite like your insurance policy, it's not just going to go out of date at the end of the year. The building's going to be around for a long time. And I was just at a meeting, just as a point of interest, I had a meeting last Friday, and there's actually been a national report released in Australia called Building with Confidence. If any of you have a couple of hours to spare over the weekend, you want to read it, I just got so excited reading this report, but my husband was not in it with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is everything I've been saying. So in this report, it talks about documentation of buildings in general in Australia today. It's a really current report. It's actually open for review at the moment. And it talks about where we're falling down in that, and where we are falling down nationally is having a set of documents at the end of a project that reflect what was built. We're very good at having that design set of documents and getting our building permit issued and 4 construction drawings, and then things happen and change on site. And then Kissy goes out on site and he puts the pipes wherever the heck he wants to, and he doesn't follow the drawings at all. And so does the electrician, and the builder makes a few adjustments as well. And then the building certifier comes along, and the building certifier is only interested in anything that's non-compliant with the National Construction Code. He's not really interested in making sure there's a set of drawings that actually reflects what was built. And the report states that in Australia today, we are really bad at having very accurate as-built drawings for our buildings. So you get your new washing machine and you get a whole manual with it, and it says this is all the parts of your washing machine and this is your maintenance and this is what you should do for the life of your washing machine. Do we get a document like that with our building? No, we don't. We still don't. And it's an area that really does need improvement because, our buildings are long-term things.
So what's the solution where who gets the responsibility?
Certified should.
Certifiers, technically speaking, only have to check documents for compliance with the NCC.
But not to.
It's work to create them. It is. It's a lot of work.
But certified, it could be a new thing for a certifier to say, look, if you don't have the drawings to reflect what's built, then I'm not going to issue a certification. Yeah, I'm not going to issue your occupancy permit. So I actually think it does come under that. So what does the certifier collect at the end of a project? So he collects a construction set of drawings from the structural engineer and a Section 40 certificate to say that the drawing is built in accordance with the design drawings. And if the design drawings are changed, actually structural engineers are really quite good at this. They will update their drawings if there's any. So sometimes structural details change. Let's say they hit Coffee Rock. This happens every day of the week in Darwin, right? So you've drawn the footing and it's 800 mils down. Okay, or it's 800 mil deep. And
suddenly they hit Coffee Rock at 500 mil, and they go, oh, we've hit the rock, we're just going to pour the footing here, and we're down on the rock, we don't need to go 800 mil deep, nobody needs to cut the rock out, we're on rock. It couldn't be any more solid than that. And so on-site concrete truck is there ready to pour. Do you think they have time to edit the drawing? No, the concrete's going to be hard by the time they do that, so they usually call the structural engineer, tell them what's happened, and they get the go-ahead from the structural engineer and the building certifier, usually in a verbal discussion. This is when that writing it in an email after the decision's been made is really, really pertinent. So that's a scenario that happens on loads of building sites every day of the week, and they change the footing design. So the structural engineer, when he goes to issue an occupancy permit, he needs to edit that drawing to show the changes that were made to the footing, because what is on the drawing is now not correct. It's not a true record of what was built. And structural engineers are quite good at editing their drawings and then signing the Section 40 for construction, and they'll send that to the engineer. Who's not really good at that is services. So we got plumbers who will draw a sketch on top of a plan, and that's usually stamped, and they get your occupancy permit. When they go to site, they can't get the pipe to go up there, there's no cavity, or there's, all sorts of issues with twists and turns in pipes. Don't envy their job at all. I think they do a really difficult job. But do they ever come back and redo their document to say where the pipework went? It happens very rarely. And
Easements are 412 miles long.
not exactly where they should be, yeah. But I'm talking even about the pipework within a building itself. There's no record of where the pipes are. So you got to renovate that building later on, and you open up walls and you discover plumbing in there that you didn't know was there. So, it's where our industry needs to go next in terms of that sort of, all the stages I talked to you about. I talked to you about, these concept drawings and the planning set and the construction set, and we're so good at getting all that right in the design phase. We're just really not good at coming back after construction and getting another set of drawings that is the record of that building.
The structural stuff, there's an engineer who changes what services, they would go back to the design.
Generally, the service engineers just sign off on the work themselves. The service installers, the plumbers and the electricians, they're self-certifying. Yeah.
That sort of thing though, because obviously the end of the house, let's just say it's flat, right? Everything's all lined, you can't see anything. Is the answer to it that some dude's got to go in there
Survey it.
every evening, just do an hour and work over it, where they can actually see
Yeah,
that's the hot
that's
water,
where it is,
that's
yeah.
the
Yeah.
things or things like
Yeah. I always say to people when they're renovating their own house, when the walls are still open, take photographs. Take photographs of where all that pipework is, because once plasterboard goes on and all gets nicely painted, nobody wants to drill holes in their walls to find pipes anymore. So, take loads of pictures because it's not recorded.
Great, it's just thousands of jobs
Yeah.
waiting to be done.
Oh yeah, it's another development of our industry.
My husband put power, like the,
Mhm.
we went to download from the ceiling. Anyway, he wrote it, he drew it somewhere and put down the measurements from the wall where the download came into the, and we lost that in our pen. So he ended up buying, he bought the dust detector, didn't he?
Yeah.
And in the end, so it was took months and months because he just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, because it's hard. Yeah, it's really you just don't want to do it. Yeah.
All right, in the end. No, it was very rare.
In the attic,
No, it was
yeah,
ground floor,
between the first and second floor.
There's no other way.
Yeah, just in there.
I mean, there's asbestos walls, so you can't actually do anything.
Yeah.
To check from the other end.
Yeah. And this is what happens. We lock away all our services into various cavities between floors and in walls, and we don't know where they are afterwards. So it definitely is something that we have to improve on. So I suppose, given often on a job, most jobs I've worked on, the documents that get saved as the most relevant set of documentation at the end of a job are the for construction drawings. Yeah, drawings that were issued for construction. In theory, they were supposed to be what was built, but who knows of tradies making design decisions on site. and not recording them is an issue in our industry.
Actually worked out the problem with the drawings. They've only got like it's what is it? 200 mil pipe. They've just drawn it as a 200 mil pipe. They have not added any of the clapper.
Yeah.
None of it fits.
Doesn't fit in the cavity.
They say like 200 mil pipe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right, 200 mil. What about the extra 100 mil? And that's what made everything not fit.
Yeah. No, I know. I have full sympathy with tradies who are on site and they have to get the job done. Okay, they don't have time to say go back and go, it's a 200 mil pipe and it doesn't fit in this wall, or are we going to reroute it? You don't have time to edit the design drawings for it to that extent. But I do think we should be going back and recording what we actually did afterwards. I think we will. I think that's coming. So this report.
This is why this doesn't work, mate. You've got to start drawing like this, and then that designer's now.
Yeah. That feedback doesn't happen nearly as much as it should.
They're having site going.
Yeah. Fucking people trying to. Yeah. That's what happens. That's the reality. Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we all work in the same industry. Like, we all worked to get this building finished. It can't be done without any of us. If one of those professions drops out, the building doesn't work. So we have to work as a team and we have to find a way forwards and the best result for the owners of the buildings at the end of the day. Those are the people who need to know where all this is. And when we think about a house, it's a lot much smaller scale, but when you start thinking about big commercial buildings, it is essential to know where everything is in those buildings because they have huge lifelong maintenance ahead of them. And also, in terms of, I'll go back to energy efficient design as well. It's really important to know exactly, how much insulation is in a wall and, how it was actually laid on site. And, this idea that on site we used to write this thing on drawings all the time, and we actually don't do it that much anymore, but we used to write like, think of a good example. I know. Just say like a Caroma 120 series water closet, toilet pan, or similar. And we would put or similar after lots of specifications. And what that did was it allowed the builder to go and get the most cost-effective toilet to go in there, and it gave them some flexibility. But the or similar is a bit dangerous because what it allows for is it was very much abused, and it allows that that some design decisions are being made on site by tradespeople, and they're not being made by designers, and they're not being documented at all. They sort of skip that whole loop, and we need to get more precise in what we have on our drawings, so that they're a true reflection, and so that your drawing set at the end of a project becomes valuable and a sort of something that lives with that building. You wouldn't believe how many buildings I've been to, guys, that there's just no set of documentation for it. Now we do have in the NT, we have the building branch, which records and stores and files and archives all of the occupancy permit drawings. So anything that was ever issued a building permit and then subsequently an occupancy permit after construction, those drawings are all kept by the NT government in the building branch, and if you have the owner's permission, you can access any of them. But as I said, some of them are missing. You go to the file, older buildings especially, some of the files are missing. Sometimes you go to some of the building is there, but they built an extension in the 80s and none of that was ever documented, and it didn't even get a building permit, and so you've got half the documentation and not half the buildings missing off it, because every time there's an extension, that's a new building permit. And so you often get building permits for extensions that don't show the existing building at the time. It just shows the extension. Sometimes it's actually really hard to even know where that extension was connected to the original building. So in terms of documentation, these are the challenges our industry faces, and we obviously in this digital age should be improving that. I would love to see it, in 10 years' time, that we have a Revit model for every building. That is a live model that gets continually updated through the life of the building. If you add an extension on, you add it onto the Revit model, and you show it there, and you know, and all the services, all the pipework, everything is modelled in that building. Why wouldn't we want to get to that point in our era that we're in? No reason. Well, yeah, lots of reasons it can't be done, but no reason it shouldn't be done. Yeah, yeah, lots of excuses, but no real valid reasons. But it is time and effort, and you know, for us, it's actually really good. It's just another whole workload for people who want to do documentation. Lots of jobs. I can't remember where I was when I started on that. Archiving. We were going to get to archiving.
At the end of a project.
What do you do at the end of a project? That's where I got to for that. So then, when we want to archive at the end of a project, we often have huge paper files and even huge digital files, okay? We want to store them. The minimum is 7 years that you have to legally keep documents for, but as I said, with buildings, they're a forever thing for me. You just don't destroy good documentation that is probably going to be valuable to someone at some point in the life of the building. What is the life of a building? Andy, how old are the buildings where you come from in Indonesia? 20 years? Nothing older than that.
No, they're much older.
The old buildings, the temples and all. How long have they been around for? Nah.
Maybe 100 years.
100 years? My brother lives in a house that's 200 years old. Perfect. Well, it's not fallen down yet.
My friend's parents live just outside of London, and their house is 500.
500 years old, yeah. So when we talk about the lifetime of a building in Australia, we're generally talking 50 to 100 years. 50 is generally taken as the lifetime of a building. I find that just laughable. I think the lifetime of a building should be way longer than that. When we think about the resources that we have to put into making a building, we really should be making them to have a much longer lifespan. I suppose for me as well, it depends on what element of the building you're talking about. If you're talking about the primary structure, you know, the concrete or the blockwork or the steel, that's the primary structure should be able to stay there minimum of 100 years.
Grandfather accident.
How do you mean?
It's the grandfather had an axe, broke the handle, dad replaced the handle, he broke
Yes.
the head, you replaced the head.
Absolutely.
It's not the same axe.
It's maintenance. It's maintenance. So the primary structure really shouldn't really need that much maintenance. We're talking bricks and mortar here, or steel, you know, really heavy duty steel. And we should be able to strip our building back to that primary structure every sort of 40 to 50 years and redress it. Same building, same bones, but it's got a makeover. I do find in Australia they're much more likely to bring the bulldozers in and just bulldoze the whole lot and put up a new building. So environmentally speaking and sustainably speaking, that's just not the way to go. Like, you've got so much embodied energy and materials in what you're destructing there. It's yeah. So there's lots of green buildings that make themselves in the design they consider the demolition. So they're actually going that step forward to plan ahead for that redressing of the building and how it can prolong the life of the structure. There was a really... Sorry? Design for? 50 years generally. They talk about the lifetime of a building being 50 years. Yeah, not in Australia they do. Overseas, I've never heard this discussion overseas. They just talk about a building lasting forever over there. Yeah, yeah. That's why I don't understand why we talk about 50 years.
Maybe, I remember like a lot of the Soviet apartment blocks, they have like a lifespan of like 20, 30 years, which is all exceeded.
All exceeded, yeah. So, you know, concrete generally, unless it gets some sort of concrete cancer or, you know, rusting through the steel that's in the concrete, yeah, it can last forever, you know. But it does depend on the quality of the original build, I suppose. But things like doors and windows, you know, you're talking 20 years max for doors and windows. So, you know, in a building like this building probably is 20 years old or more. I think this building was a 70s building. So, you know, we're getting to our 50 years now. You know, it's not that bad. I don't know if they ever put new windows in. They don't look that bad a condition to me, you know. Windows definitely do take a hammering, and they won't last. You know, they will need to be replaced.
I'm pretty sure my windows at home.
Yeah, my house, my windows really could do an overhaul. And actually, if you're buying a house or building a house, and most people build a new house, if they build a new house, they expect it to last their lifetime. But windows, if you look at the manufacturer's warranty on them, they're 20 years. You know, and that's maybe a cost of 40 or 50,000 that you have to be thinking about. Most people don't replace all the windows after 20 years, and they just live with what they have. But if we had a very grandfather-like maintenance schedule, that's what we would be doing. We'd be repairing. I do find Europe is much better at repairing and maintenance than here. We do expect buildings here just to sit there and be pretty forever, and they don't.
You can prolong, like, the lifetime of a window, like, shutters and stuff, just by, like, oiling them.
Oiling them, regular maintenance, yep.
So that,
Yeah.
Look at that 20.
I hate my windows so much.
I do too.
Glass, though.
No,
No, and the glass does end up
the
getting
mechanical.
pitted and all sorts of,
just the mechanical part of
Yeah.
the window.
yeah.
Rust and glass.
The interesting is like the sizes of windows back then, they're no longer standard sizes, so everything has to be
Hard, yeah.
And then, like, we consider getting some louvers in, like replacing them, the glass sliding ones with louvers and everything too.
Yeah. We do run into those issues too. All right, so if you're in the office and it's the end of the job and the job closes, we have to think about archiving. So let's think about the hard copy file first. What would we do? Pretty much we do an audit, you know. We go through that hard copy file. What do we want to retain? Probably just the 4 construction drawings or the as-built drawings, whichever is the most recent, you know. You'd probably keep 1 copy of the planning application, the building permit application, and the occupancy permit application. Everything else would be gone, in the bin. No duplicate copies. We just keep 1 copy of everything. Obviously, it's in good condition.
So does that keep the construction and as-built drawings?
I mean, whichever is the latest. And you might keep planning, a set of the planning documents as well. So we're just talking about archiving in general here. I'm just not following the questions. I'm just talking about archiving in general. You can look at what you want to do there. So if we just had hard copy files, what else might we do with them?
You can destroy them if it's like really valuable information.
Yeah, we can certainly look at the destruction and shredding and how do you say, privacy, I suppose, of anything that we are destroying. But the ones we're keeping, if we just had them in hard copy, what else might you do?
Oh, we can store it digitally.
Yeah,
Them in.
we would scan them as well, and we would keep a digital file of them. Yeah. So the advantages of like if you don't do that, if you have a hard copy document, and certainly this is something you will all be working with because buildings are old and you'll be going back for drawings, you know, that came out of the 60s and 70s. I've often worked on buildings where the drawings are hand drawing. I've worked on buildings where the drawings are imperial, you know, and you've had to convert all of that. So you'd certainly be doing that. So hard copy drawings can only be viewed and read by the naked eye, you know. So it's you and this sheet and a magnifying glass, often trying to get the information off there. So they have disadvantages, I suppose, of just archiving the hard copies, so we would generally try and scan them as well. So whereas soft copy documents, so something that's digital, inevitably require hardware, software, and a level of expertise to be assessed and translated into a comprehensible form. Let's think about somebody's given you an AutoCAD drawing that was created in 2002. What do you think that's going to look like, or what challenges might you face when you open it? May not open. The file could corrupt over the years, all right, if you archived it, but also you may not have the software. You know, your AutoCAD might turn around and say, cannot be opened in 2018. I'm not actually sure it does that, but it's a don't.
Hopefully converted to the newest format of the program. Do you wish to continue? So like 2012 file will no longer exist.
Yes. So yeah, once you open it, it will update it to the latest version of the software, which is a good thing. But I'm just, provided it doesn't corrupt it, and provided it doesn't, So you might want to make a copy of the file before you try opening it. But all we're going to say here is that, you know, we have to be aware that it will not only require the software, but it'll also require somebody else with the expertise. So, you know, if you've got a client and they're at home and they want to build an extension, but they've got an AutoCAD file from, you know, 2002, it's not much good to them if they don't have AutoCAD and they just have this file sitting somewhere. You know, you do need to have, as I said, the software and the expertise. That's what's meant by that. You need someone who is able to open it and access it and translate it into somewhat comprehensible form. Otherwise, you might as well not have it.
So what was the 3 days that you might archive? Was the
So you might archive, you know, the as-built, the for-construction drawings, or the planning application drawings. You probably wouldn't keep, for instance, all the sketches from the concept design. Really, who's ever going to need them again? Although I did take some beautiful pictures of the concept sketches for the Opera House. They still have them in the Opera House. And so, you know, if you're doing a masterpiece, probably keep everything. But, you know, your everyday mum and dad, you know, lot number 1562 in Zuccoli, probably nobody's going to be interested in your sketches or your site measurements that you took on site. So at the point of archiving, you can get rid of a lot of that design work that you would be doing. You don't need to keep it. Deepest? What is it? Oh, Sydney Opera House, deepest. Is it? It does have a huge amount of, like, even, like, rooms and theatres and all underneath the what do they call it, the platform or the, you know, the area outside it. I mean, that whole walk up to it. If you're underneath there, it's all rooms and facilities underneath. Yeah, cafes, they're sitting down under. So another disadvantage of the soft copy documents, they're vulnerable to tampering and forgery in an entirely different manner to hard copy files. So, you know, if we're thinking about the AutoCAD drawing that's been around for, you know, 20 odd years, somebody may have went in there and edited it, and it may not actually be the original drawing file. So that's the danger of soft copy files. They're much more able to be edited and have some sort of forgery applied to them. We would hope that they've been in safekeeping and that has never happened, but it's much harder to detect that on a soft copy file than it is on a hard copy file.
What's the benefit?
Of?
Tampering or forgery at the end of the project?
Yeah, I don't know what the benefit would be to anyone, but it could be just somebody has, you know, decided that they want to do that house again on another lot somewhere, and they've went in and they haven't saved it under a new job number. They've gone into the old job number and just edited it, took out a couple of walls for the next client, and then saved it under that job number, and it's actually not reflective of what was actually built at all. And that can happen. Yeah, tampering or, you know, it's just bad file management usually. I don't think anyone intentionally goes in and edits somebody's house. I don't know why we would do that. We've enough drafting to do without doing that and wait around for 30 years for someone to discover it, you know. It's not, yeah. Soft copy documents, generally speaking, are easier to copy and disseminate, and more difficult to destroy. Yeah? So what do we do with the hard copy when we want to destroy it? Shred it and give it to, or maybe give it to a certified company that they can do the shredding for you. And what do we do with a soft copy if we want to destroy it?
Well, do more than just delete.
Yeah. So it's probably got like copies everywhere on in your system. If you really wanted to look for them, of course we can never find them when we lose a drawing. But you know, no doubt they might fall into the wrong hands. So this becomes really important. Like I have worked on buildings that are like credit unions and banks, and you know, military facilities. These documents are valuable to some people. You know, the wrong sort of people, I suppose. And you have to be really careful with your the privacy around all of that. And so if you are deleting these soft copy files, generally we just go into the job number and we just do a clean out in there, just an audit in there and do a delete and then empty my recycle bin. That's about as far as I've gone with it, but I do know you were saying the military delete their files, I don't know how many times to be sure that they're all completely gone. Yeah, that's pretty good. So it's vital to keep proper records of generating, archiving and storing documents to demonstrate that they were not tampered with. So on a archive box, let's talk about the hard copy files. So we generally get an archive box. After the break, I'll bring you up a sample of one. On the front of the archive box is another new document register. This is how you should archive. So on the front of the archive box, you have a document register and you list every document that's gone into the archive box and, you know, date it when it was archived. That's so that, like, guys, I've went into storage rooms of drafting offices and they're about the size of this room and they're just full of shelves of boxes. Now, you may be the person that gets the job to go find the drawing for X project. And that's a one big room and a lot of boxes to search through. So you better hope that your predecessors have written nicely on their document logs on the outside of those archive boxes, or you're going to be in a dusty, horrible room for hours. So, yeah. And so please, when you're the person archiving, think of the next person coming behind you, because we're all in the same industry, as we said, and, you know, clearly write that document log on the outside of your archive box to save what's in there. In terms of digital files, we generally just compress the job number, the job folder, and, you know, your company should have some sort of means of digital storage for that file. We will talk about all of digital storage coming up next. But that's the archiving. Sure I've covered everything. So yeah, I suppose we should mention that there are, for hard copy files, if you've got all these archive boxes, they're generally not stored in your office. They take up a lot of space. There are companies out there that you can certainly do a bit of searching on the internet. This is their specialty. They specialize in archiving hard copy files, and they, you know, run secure locations, and they ensure that those locations aren't damaged by storm or flooding or anything like that, because, you know, quite often these are the only copy. They're originals. So you can, and most companies do, use archive companies, I suppose, to securely store their hard copy files. There is, the NT government have the archiving building. Do you know that one? You've all driven past it loads of times. It's on the corner of the Nightcliff Junction, the turn off of Trowell Road to Nightcliff. Right in the corner there has all the NT records. So they regularly do upgrades to that building to make sure it doesn't blow away in the event of a cyclone or anything, because seemingly this is very important. Yeah, I believe they do. I think they have a lot of the Northern Territory records in that building. Yeah. Into that building, yeah. I'm sure you have to have some sort of security clearance to be allowed to go in there. And also, if you're, and this happens all the time too, so the company I worked in, like, I reckon they've worked on almost every building in Darwin. So when you'd start a new job, the boss would go, "We have drawings for that in the archive." It was the worst thing you could hear. He's like, "Oh no." So we would go to the document log. So we had a document log that was every job number that was ever taken out by the company, and you would search the address, would search by address in that, and then our lot number, and then that would bring us back to a job number that was used for that 20, 30 years ago. And in the office then we would have a request form that you could fill out for archives, because the archives weren't on site. Request form for the archives given the job number, and you'd send it off to the external company that was holding all the archives, and they would retrieve the whole file, the whole job file for you. really important that you make sure that that file goes back to archives when you're finished with it. Like everything in that file has been archived by somebody else, and you're now retrieving it from archiving. And you want to make sure it goes back again for the next person, and the life of that building is dependent on that file, and it's now on your desk. So you just need to be careful. It's yours. I know one time in the office there was a cyclone coming up over the weekend, and so anyone who had, and at any point in time there could be 20 files from archives in the office because we'd be using the information out of them, and you would, the boss would send around an email saying all archive files need to be back in archives before the weekend, before the cyclone hits. He didn't want them sitting in the office and then subsequently be destroyed if the windows came in or something like that. So, so definitely anything from archives that you retrieve from archives, make sure it's your responsibility to make sure it goes back in its entirety, that you don't just leave a couple of drawings out and forget to put them back in and then think you're a bit embarrassed and not bother ever putting them back in because nobody knows any different. But, please make sure they go back. Righto. Right, I'm going to just do a quick 10-minute break now, because afterwards we're going to talk about digital systems. And really, once I've gone through that, I think you have all the information you're going to need for this unit, for Assessment Task 1. And we shall leave it at that. And then next week we'll just use this afternoon for Revit, which I think is actually where we need to spend more time. Any questions on any of that? It's all general information, to be fair. At the same time, it's about office procedures and what you should do in certain instances, because you'd be quite amazed at how many people just don't do what they should do. And they find this stuff it's admin. But it's admin that we all do for the benefit of the industry as a whole. Right, take 10. We'll come back to doing our digital.
Tomorrow, do we have to drive ourselves? Yes. Just get on
Hold on, wait, let's turn this off. Back to this and get it done. So, this afternoon I want to talk about where's my document gone? All the different ways that we can store digital files, okay? So, to be fair, you guys are all younger than me, I think, and probably know these way better than I do. So, if we think about digital filing systems, we know that most computers have a hard drive in the computer itself, yeah? Yeah, and so most of us, especially when we're working at home, and we're not on any sort of network, we're just working on one PC, we're saving our files to the hard drive of that computer, okay? That's called an internal hard drive. What's the advantages and disadvantages of an internal hard drive? Advantages first. What's the advantage of it? Quick and easy. Easily accessible. Yeah? Is it difficult to manage it? Nah. What's the disadvantage? Crashes. It's gone. It's gone. The computer dies. You don't have the files anymore. Okay? External hard drive. What's the difference? What's the difference of an internal and an external hard drive? Andy? Yeah. Easy to carry around. Why? Is it portable? How big is it usually? They vary, but they're generally just little compact drives. External hard drives. Okay. They can be, but they're generally not. So look at external hard drives these days can come up to a terabyte of data. I just laugh when I think about my days in uni of trying to bring files from one place to another and the issues I had to go through. When nowadays you can bring your life on a hard drive that's that size. So advantages of a external hard drive?
Easy to move around.
Portability. Yeah, you can bring it from that computer over to that computer, over to that computer. You can bring it anywhere you want and plug it into any device and use your files, yeah? Yep. Disadvantages?
Can break.
Can break, yeah, absolutely. Yep, yeah. They certainly can fail.
Yeah.
I've had an external hard drive with a lot of data on it and literally plugged it in and it just didn't, you know the way on your PC it just brings up the extra drive? Just wouldn't appear. What do you do when all your files are on it and it just won't appear? You feel like somebody chopped the arm off of you, like, where is it? And, yeah.
First you have the feeling that yes, it has to work.
It has to work, yeah.
Give up till
Yeah. And you plug it in and out 50 times because you think like the 49th time that's the one that's going to do it here.
Humidity, the moisture in the air actually destroys electronics.
Yeah, well, absolutely it does. And I tell you, another thing that destroys a lot of people's computers, ants. So just always be careful. Don't leave anything that will attract ants anywhere near your PCs. I've seen loads of people go through that. Sorry?
Justice cancers, but also, on the odd occasion, some hard drives are formatted to be on your PC or formatted on your CMAC.
Right. External hard drives. I never knew that.
No, you
Once
do
you
when
use
you go.
them, they become formatted to that site.
Yeah.
Oh no, you have to reformat if you're using a format.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So there's a certain, like, I think it's like a format thing that you have to choose if you want to use it on both.
Yeah,
So basically, because what you'll find when you use a Mac, it just won't use, like,
You
you
won't read
can
it.
see it and everything, but you can't drag or put anything
Oh,
onto
you can't
the
move them. Okay. I know that. I don't have a Mac computer. I use Apple for quite a few things, but mostly just my phone and my iPad. But work stuff, I go with Windows every time. That's just because that's been around since I started. All my files are all in that format. So, yeah. So external hard drives. The other thing that can happen with disadvantage with them is they just get lost. And left behind in computers, and somebody else decides that they could do with a terabyte as well, and your files are gone.
delete everything.
Yeah, just wipe it.
Mine now.
Yeah. So okay. So it can be detached. It's not permanently fixed inside a computer. Some external storage drives comes with backup software. So then we know, and we can talk about the cloud storage. So we're all been really proficient using OneDrive since we started here. Actually, you guys have got onto it and used it really, really well. So what's the advantages of the cloud storage?
accessibility.
Accessibility, because we can basically, once we've got internet access, we can access the cloud storage, and it's not just from PCs. It's from your phone, it's from iPads, all your other devices, and you can do it anywhere in the world. It's just on the internet. And you've got internet access, you can access the cloud. And cloud storage, I suppose, in the last 5 years has, basically taken over. That's really, a lot of us are using it. I still see disadvantages in using cloud storage on a day-to-day basis as a place to work from. I don't see it as being as advantageous as having, my files in a folder system on the hard drive. When you're in OneDrive, everyone realizes when you open a Word document, you just click on the Word document, it's opening an online version of Word, and I find it a little bit limited. And the other thing then, if I want to open it in the full Word version, I have to download and then work in my document and then upload it back to the OneDrive. So I don't think it's actually where it's going to be. I think it's going to go further than this, but it's there and we're using it, and it's a great way to share files, as we know. So, think about the advantage for me, for instance, as a lecturer, being able to just put a file in one location and share that folder with you guys at any point in time. You guys can just come in and see the file, and you all know the issues we've had with my settings and moving and copying the files, which we've overcome. But so we can share the folder, and you can set the access there. People can view the file, people can edit the file, you can work in collaboration with people anywhere in the world. So it has a huge amount of advantages and only a few minor disadvantages that I think we'll overcome.
Yeah,
you need internet. You do need internet. And I suppose that is a disadvantage because, you know. Yes, and the speeds.
Wherever you work generally, there is internet wherever you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
The disadvantage is that there's always internet and that people can access you while you're on holidays.
Oh, it's becoming a huge issue in workplaces.
I think there's probably like a greater chance of being hacked because, you know, there's been so many times where like iCloud was hacked and like, you know, famous people's photos are like stolen.
Yeah,
Photos. That could happen if somebody targeted you.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah, how good is your security in that scenario? Yeah. And, you know, if for instance, you know, the wrong people did know that, you know, your company were doing work on, you know, Robinson Barracks and they decide, you know, maybe the North Koreans decide that, you know, actually it's too hard to go after the military. Their security systems are way too good. But this drafting office has all the plans. This drafting office is way easier to get to. So, you know, that happens. That definitely does happen. So be careful how you set it up.
Wasn't there just recently some massive thing about the government? No, army, wasn't it? Where some army stuff were like leaked, something about the ships. Like really, really, really
sensitive information. Yeah.
Was leaked. And there was some about like the storage cabinet, like was thrown out.
Oh, the two filing cabinets, yeah.
Oh, yes, I did, yes. They got sold with documents in them or something, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's really sorry about that $50 they got for the filing cabinet. They just happily give that back and rewrite history. So network attached storage, or NAS, or NAS as it's abbreviated, is computer data storage server connected to a computer network and specialized for serving files either by its hardware, software, or configuration. Okay, so I'll have to read these because I never know the difference in these two. Okay, so a network attached storage. So you have a server. Didn't it say that? Yeah. So this is what a lot of companies would have. You know, small offices will have this. They'll have a server, which is a computer basically, and it is storing all of the files in the server, and then they might have 4 or 5 computers that are networked to that server. Okay, and so all of the company files are on the server, and from any PC in the office, you can log in, you're on the network, and you're using all the job numbers. You can see every single one of them. So can your mate sitting beside you. So for instance, if we have this part of the room on a server, we've got Juan, Despina, and Andy. They can all just log in. They're on the server and they can access whatever files they want, but you can all see the same files at the same time. And generally in a situation like that on a network, you can't open the same file at the same time. It will give you that read-only message. You know, when you open a file on your computer and then you click on it again, the second time, and it says you can open this file but in read-only, meaning that only one person can edit the file at a time, and that tends to happen a bit on a network server. So a bit like what Nick was saying earlier, if you've got someone who opens lots of files and then goes on leave for 2 weeks, that you know, incapacitates all the rest of the people in the office to do any work on those files. So hopefully you'll be able to get into their computer and turn them, close all the files again. So that's generally used in a small office. The RAD technology is computer data storage visualization technology. That combines multiple physical disk drive components into a single logical unit for the purposes of data redundancy, performance, or improvement. Okay, let's think about that. So in one scenario, we've got a server, okay? That server has a hard drive, okay? And everything is getting stored on that hard drive. How many locations, even though you've got these 3 people all connected into the network, how many locations is that file saved in? So we're talking back up here about the NAS storage. Now, the NAS storage, one server, 3 people working off that one server. How many locations is the file stored in? One location, okay? The difference in the RAD technology is that you have a computer set up and it has more than one drive, okay? So exact copies or mirror images are stored on one or more drives. What's the advantage of that? Backup, absolutely backup, because basically it means that if one drive fails, the other one has a mirror image. And it's automatic, it's all automated. So you're working on your files during the day, you three again, you're on this server now, you're all working on your files. When you go home at 6 o'clock this evening, the whole system does a mirror image of itself. And then, you know, at least if one of the drives crashes, the other one is still operable the next morning for everyone in the office to work. Because obviously in an office situation, if your server is down and if you can't access the files, can you imagine how much money that's losing the company for every employee sitting there who can't get onto their computer and can't get into the files? It's crisis situation for an office environment when the server is issues with the server. And, you know, get IT around pretty damn fast to fix it, because in an architect's office or an engineer's office and there's 40 or 50 people, you know, all hopefully earning, you know, between 40 and $100 an hour. Even 1 hour lost cost the company quite a bit of money, you know, so time is definitely money. So when we think about the RAD technology then, we have an automated backup system. So the office I worked in here in Darwin, their head office was in Melbourne. So what happened was we had a server in Darwin that we would work off in the office, networked. It was a bit like this, network attached storage. Directly to the server, everyone would be saving the files there all day. The same thing would happen in the office in Melbourne. They had an automated system that at 6 p.m. every evening, the server in Melbourne backed up to the server in Darwin, and the server in Darwin backed up to Melbourne. Now that was a slower process, because obviously it has to do it through the internet. But what it meant was that each server was also covered within 1 day's work, that you would get files backed up from one to the other. So that's how that worked. And different offices have different setups, but the important part to remember here is that your files should always be saved in more than one location. What is the advantage of that? Backup. What's the disadvantage? Yeah. The danger is that you get two copies of the same file with the same name, and one has different edits to the other. So it's a bit like, you know, when we do our drawing filing, we don't want to ever have a duplicate of the same drawing. So with a server situation, and this is why automation is really good in this regard. Now, I have worked in small offices. You know, when I was starting off back in Ireland, at one point I worked for an architect who was working on her own, and she would have me every Friday evening plugging in my external hard drive and saving all of we literally had 2 PCs, and we would just back up the hard drive of the 2 PCs onto an external hard drive. So that's an acceptable form of backup. You've now saved all your files in 2 locations. The issue would be that you plug in the external hard drive on a Monday morning, she started working on the file off the external hard drive, and it wasn't saved back to the PC. So that's an unautomated system, and, you know, it's open to human error, I suppose, and people working on the wrong set of files. So when I say to people back up, and Kissy will know this, so we've done that, you know, you guys are working on your R drive at the moment, and you're using that every day for all your files. But I would suggest that once a week, you just have a file that sits called backup, whatever you want to call it, on the OneDrive, your cloud storage, and that you just save everything in your R drive once a week up to there. So if anything ever happens to R drive, or you delete something by mistake, or, you know, catastrophe happens and CDU is no longer here, you still have everything you have done on OneDrive. It's in the cloud. Yeah, and it's very safe in the cloud. So, of course, the reason why we used to do the Darwin-Melbourne swap over with the 2 offices wasn't that we could have put in the RAD technology and had a second server backing up within the server itself, a second drive backing up. But if the office goes on fire, both drives are gone. Do you know what I mean? It's good if one drive fails, but it doesn't prevent the case of a fire where the whole server room gets destroyed, and then all the files are gone with it. So often companies will want that backup system to be off-site, okay? And so you can do that in lots of different ways. You know, cloud storage is perfect. Having a server in another location, a second server that you can back up to, lots of offices that have multiple offices do that for each other in the offices themselves. IT companies can do that, so they can have a server sitting in at the IT company, so it's off-site location, and your server is backing up to an IT company. Of course, they're going to charge you for that. So there's lots of ways to have that second backup, and your system is not valid, and it's not a good office system unless it has some sort of, you know, regular and I would say automated backup system happening all the time, because relying on humans to come and plug in the external hard drive and back up once a week is, sometimes it happens and then the office gets busy and then it doesn't happen for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you know, in small offices this can happen quite regularly. So in larger offices, no doubt it'll be automated and it'll just be a system that sits there. Got some old ones here. We got compact disc, CD. You know, it used to be a time where you would certainly put all the drawings on a CD and give them out to clients and things like that. Nowadays we can just email and, you know, share on cloud storage and things like that. So really we're not using it anymore. Magnetic tape data storage, like I don't even remember this one.
Oh, really? We use that even.
Governments use it a lot.
This was the mining company over in Kalgoorlie, 2004, 2008.
Uh-huh.
And they had one for every day of the week and 2 sets. One odd week on even week, yep, backwards and forwards. And the 2 sets would go to people's houses. The people who would take them home had cars, so they wouldn't have to be on public transport, wouldn't actually leave them anywhere. There's so much mining data that would have been very valuable to competing companies.
Right, yeah.
These are very, very heavily protected.
So what do they look like? They're quite big, aren't they?
Almost like a VHS.
A VHS, like it's a reel, isn't it? Yeah, it's a tape and a reel, yeah. Yeah.
A VHS and a, 3 1/4 inch floppy disk sort of thing, that kind of.
Right, yeah.
Like 1
Big piece of
terabyte.
plastic, great big film inside.
Yeah.
3 terabytes.
And would they ever corrupt? Would they ever, was
Yeah,
it?
and easily damaged.
And easily damaged, yeah, I don't think, yeah.
The Calgary Sun.
Yeah.
One of the geologists just stopped at the bottle on the way home. Was on his seat, peeked through the windscreen. It was fine, it was
Yeah.
Thursday or whatever.
Yeah.
Wednesdays and we had Fridays, so everything was all good. But that particular day, it's got good.
Right.
Seat, that tape was done.
Wow. Yeah. No, I wouldn't be running to try and, you know, develop my knowledge on these tapes and get them into my system. But yeah, no, they do exist. And I know governments tend to use magnetic tape data storage. And I think they do. Not quite sure. Maybe that's changed recently.
Government use a lot of physical things. The more stuff that's out there on servers and networks.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they quite trust them yet.
To the north to get to them.
Yeah.
So physical data storage is
Yeah.
a lot safer.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think as well with one of the disadvantages is it requires very specialist software to read and write the tapes, and you know, I think it's quite reasonably big machines that have to run them and equipment. Right, yeah. Yeah, right. And I suppose that's one thing to note here too. So most companies that do have a server room, the server room is air conditioned 24/7, and that's, you know, that runs for everything, so quite normally. And actually it's something to think about when you're designing buildings, that the server room will run 24/7 with air conditioning in it. So, you know, usually we have it as an internal room in the middle of the building, well protected, got a nice constant temperature. I would even go so far as to say you should insulate the walls between the server and the other parts of the building.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, absolutely you should. Get condensation. Yeah.
Person who's sat up against the server room wall,
Yeah.
back of their head cooked all.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, so that's all what we have here on digital. Anyone want to add to that? Because I assume that table just grows and grows as we develop further. So when I went to uni, we had floppy disks. I'm sure I've got one somewhere. I should bring it in. So we had floppy disks that used to go into the computer, and we could, if we were really lucky, we could save one drawing on one.
Yeah, we really like small.
Oh, capacity was just tiny. I can't remember what it was, but it was tiny, but 0.5 of a megabyte, I think.
It's like, yeah, I had one that was
I reckon it would have been.
5 megabytes or 2.5.
That's pretty big.
We're talking about gigabytes, I think it's like, huh? It would
Yeah.
have been very, very, you probably wouldn't even fit one song like
Tony,
it.
no, God.
It would have been like a Word document that would
Yeah,
barely.
a couple of Word documents would have filled it, yeah. Because I know, because I studied through that period, and we would put one .dwg file per floppy. And then when your drawing got too big, it couldn't fit on the floppy, and I went to uni at night time with the hard drive, the whole hard drive off my computer to print the drawings, because I had no other way to get the drawings there. There was no USBs, there was no external hard drives, there was none of that stuff. I didn't even have a CD writer, and nor did the plotter have anything that could read a CD. So, you know, floppy was your only option. And we literally, and there could be, I remember one night, like, there was obviously a hand in the next day, and there must have been 20 of us in a queue for the plotter with our hard drives, you know. We plug them in and get it all printed. So, yeah, back in the day when, you know, all this storage was, I suppose, only developing really, and we were pretty immobile with it. Whereas now we're so mobile. We've got the USBs, we've got the external hard drives, and we've got the cloud storage. We basically can just access from everywhere and anywhere on whatever device.
Email.
Emails. Okay, well, let's talk about emails and drawings. So as we know, drawings are really those big file sizes. So if we want to email a drawing to somebody else, what should we be doing with it? Zip. Yeah. So I think in your questions it asks you about compressing file sizes, and it asks you to give a couple of options. Now I know the .zip, the zip files, are the most common ones for this. Can everybody just open any drawing they want, or sorry, any file they want, like a PDF file or something, or a couple of PDFs, and let's just try zipping. I just want to make sure everybody knows how to zip and unzip, because it's actually one of those office things that you will want to do quite a bit.
Do you want us to show you that we know how to
You
do
go
it?
to the,
Yeah.
Like, you just right click and then send to compress.
Well, let me look up here. I'm just going to show, because it could be a couple of people who have never tried this before. So let's have a look.
Multiple stuff,
What have I got?
and then right click and then send to. And then compress the file.
Well, I've got a zip in here.
And then you
So if I go to 83 in here, I've got, say, all of these different files here. So I've got a PDF, got a drawing, and got that PDF there. If I want to zip them, I just simply highlight all of the files I want to put together, and I go send to compress zip folder. And it gives me my zip file. Yep. So if I, let me see, will this give me the joint value of all these? I think it will. So that size is 254 KB, kilobyte. I never know this units, kilobytes. And this zipped one,
just gonna have to press OK first. Yeah. Get it properly. Sorry for
it's only 214. It didn't do very much, did it? It's supposed to compress it down a lot more than that. So what it does is it just compresses all the files you're sending into one folder, and it's much easier to attach that one zip to a email. You just attach the one file to it, and then we go. So then when the person receives the file, they might receive this zip file on their email address, and when they want to open it, they simply download the file, and they right-click on it, and they go extract all. Extract, it's going to tell me I already have these files, and there's the files. So there are a few other programs around that do the similar thing, but I think Zip is the one that's the default there on Windows, and everybody seems to use the zip file, but there are a few other programs there. I think we talked about this before too. When we're sharing drawings, I know when I was working, mostly we would just email them to issue them. But now, again, a lot of companies are using web-based, internet-based websites to share drawings. So everybody uploads their set of drawings to one common place on the internet, on the web, and then everybody can access that and they can download and upload drawings as they need to. But absolutely a website like that will need a document controller. That will be really important on there to make sure that you're getting and giving the latest drawings. So it's asking us to provide 3 advantages of using a zip file.
Zip file can be compressed.
What's the first advantage of a zip file?
Compress several files.
Sorry? Yeah, reduces the size. Yeah. Any other advantages?
17.
Well, I suppose the other advantage would be that you can send a whole folder structure in a zip file. So, you know, you could send someone the whole job and they would have every subfolder and it would all already be filed for them. Whereas if you send them a load of files, if you send somebody 20 files, they have to download all 20 and file them back into folders in some sort of order. But if you want to send the whole job, you can come back up here. If I want to send this whole job to someone, you can come back up to the actual job number and zip that. Take a little bit longer. There's a few more files in this one. And now the whole job is zipped. And if I go OK and extract it, do very much there, did it? What's it there? It's extracted it all up to there. So they get, when they receive it, they get this, they get this. Oh. It didn't look like it was very successful. So sends the whole, you can send the whole file structure with it as well.
Yeah.
And I would say the third advantage for this would be like that you can actually put a password onto the zip itself. Yeah. So you can secure the actual file. And it's probably something we should talk about. You can put a password on quite a few different file types. One of my favorite ones is PDF. You can certainly in Bluebeam set your permissions in Bluebeam on the PDF. Let's look at doing that. So say I want to do this one. I forget where it is in here.
This file can compress and file can reduce the size of the file storage required.
You don't have to down
Because the file is compressed, the zip file can be emailed without the limitation of the file size. Reduce the space of an external hard drive, and you can secure a file by putting a password.
Does anyone know how we can do the password in PDF? I used to know how to do this. Can't see it anywhere.
Will be security somewhere.
Yeah. Felt like it should have been in there. Did you see it? Ah, good on you, Kissy. So you can change permissions, and so you can set the password, require password to open the document, so nobody can actually even open it. And then you can enable permissions limited to printing and editing. I used to use this all the time when I issued certificates in digital format for when I used to do the energy assessments all the time. I would issue a stamped set of drawings, and I had to sign, so I would digitally sign the stamp on the set of the drawings, and then I would package all of that up, and I would put permission on it that they could only limit it to printing and editing. That's so nobody could take my stamp with my electric signature on it and stamp whatever other drawings they wanted to with it. They just couldn't edit my PDF at all. All they could do was print and so printing and editing, but they couldn't actually edit mine. Let's see if I put that in there. So you could, you say allow printing, and you wouldn't allow any changes, allow copy and text or graphics, allow anything else. You just turn all that off and just allow printing only. So if you're ever sending drawings that have stamps on them or anything electronic that could be copied and used again and again by persons who didn't want to do, you don't want to do that, you can set your passwords in your PDF. All right? But we can also password protect the zip file. I actually don't know how to do that. Does anyone know how to password protect the zip file? Shall we try it together? Anyone ever done it?
Security. To change permissions, click edit.
So you can just do a read only on the file, I assume. If you just wanted someone to be able to see the PDF and read it.
So that would deny the reader. They'd be able to write it, but they couldn't read it.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry, deny, yeah. Okay, allow, full control. So what would you actually be trying to do here? So you'd be protecting it while it was being sent, but you still want the end user to be able to unzip the file, don't you? So you're protecting a zip file. So what you want to be able to do is password protect the zip file, send it, and then obviously in another email send the password for the zip, so the person the recipient that you want it to receive it can have the password to open it again.
Where is it saying that you wouldn't be able to?
So deny full control. Can't do anything with it.
There might be, because
Yeah, but if you sent them the password, then they could open it. I suppose it protects it while it's in transit. Oh, you must be able to set password.
So there could be to do with permissions, because we're not administrators of these computers. That could be one thing to do. And therefore we cannot, basically IT may be able to do it.
Ooh, I better be careful what I'm actually playing with here.
You know, found your way into the back door and you're going to shut down the Stargate over the way. Or stupid purple lights.
So these are permissions for this. I reckon it's confusing it a little bit because it's in a folder that has permissions set on it. So the R drive has lots of different permissions. So there's a couple of different groups. There's the students, there's the lecturers, and there's the admin. So that's what that's in relation to. Changes to edit. So I think that's an edit for that. Ooh, this is not to do with my zip file.
Yeah, so if you close that,
Yeah.
the one where you can change, yep, that one. There it says for special permissions or advanced settings, click advanced.
Yeah, I think maybe. Ooh. Yeah, look, I think I'm in something else here because I'm in a folder that's, what if we, if I copy it and I bring it to just this PC, just the desktop.
Don't change permissions, just change the text style to wingdings, just to annoy CDUs.
Trying to get me fired. Okay, let's see in here. Where did we go? Properties, security. All right, that's probably more what we should see. So this is me, and I'm allowed. See, I don't think that's the same thing as sending a password on a .zip. That's just different. That's talking about the folder it's in on the computer. Maybe you can try that one at home on your PCs at home that don't have all the CDU administrator and restrictions on it. And maybe you need to download a separate pro. I've never set a password on a zip file, but obviously it can be done. And so that's your third reason for why you have an advantage of a zip file is going to be that you can set a password on it. Are there any questions? Are there anything that you think you might need to know to complete your assessments before we finish? You've had a look through there. Oh, the other one I wanted to touch on was read-only. What is a read-only?
You can't modify it.
Can't modify a file in any way. All you can do is look at it and read it. It's actually really handy when it comes to drawings. When you really don't want people to be able to edit or do anything. PDFs have become so editable these days. Like, I rave on about the advantages of Bluebeam, but Bluebeam lets you do lots of things to drawings in PDFs that before 2 or 3 years ago you couldn't do them. You just couldn't do it in a PDF. Now we can add dimensions in the PDF. We can erase bits of the drawing. Just block it out. That you can't even see that note anymore. So if somebody wanted to be really crafty and say to you, you made an error on your drawing, they could bring it into PDF and they could erase a note that said something quite important on it and say that you never put it there in the first place.
You would still have...
You'd have the original. You would.
There's so many things that you open, it'll say this is a read-only version.
Yeah.
Do you want to open to enable editing?
Yeah. And you just, everyone says yes straight away. Yeah. So the other thing with read-only, well, there's two things. There's two types of read-only files. There's a read-only file, you get a read-only message if you're on a network and you're all working in an office together and Despina opens the floor plan for a job and you want to open it too, when you try to open it, it'll say read-only, right? And so when you get a read-only file like that, there's a couple of things you can do. You can do a save as, but you've got to call it a new file name. Please don't do that. You're creating two documents with two different names for the same file. Don't do that. If you've got a read-only message coming up, try and solve the problem. The read-only message means the file is open either by you on your computer, and you can look around and see if it's open there, or open by somebody else that might be on a network with you. But then the other idea of read-only is if you've got a PDF or another file and you protect it with a password or you set the settings on it to be read-only. Well, that means when you're issuing that file, you only want the people, the recipients, to be able to read it. You don't want to give them any editing rights. So sending things to clients, absolutely read-only. Clients should never need to edit drawings. The only time you send drawings that should be able to be manipulated is to other consultants and engineers and people who understand drafting, because they obviously want to bring it in and use the information in a drawing, same way as we would. Right? I think that's everything. Do you want to have a look through the questions there and ask me anything else before you go? Give you the rest of the lesson to go through them and get your assessments up and running.
All three?
No. We've still got, this is just for the part-timers, AT1. Although you guys who are doing this full-time, you will see that there is lots of repetition in these questions in the assessment task, so feel free to work ahead.
AT2 and 3 is the same thing, must be different to AT1 answer.
Oh, does it?
Oh, does it?
That was the question.
Bringing it out a little bit further.
Delete that.
Provide different.
Should give you a read-only file, shouldn't I? Then you wouldn't be able to put your answers in. Okay. If you do have any questions on any of that, let me know. We won't see the part-timers for this unit anymore. I've done all the delivery anyway, so there's no more to it than that. It's quite a short unit. And the full-timers will be back then. We won't have to do this unit next week at all. And full-timers will be back on the 7th. And we'll run through a few extra things that we want to add on, but in fairness, office setups and all of that are fairly similar for whether it's a Class 1 project or a Class 2 or a commercial style building. And for the part-timers who aren't, are going to be doing assessment tasks 2 and 3 till next year, David, that includes you, work ahead, fill out those answers and the other ones, if you can now. It'll just save you loads of work next year. And it'll save you, because you guys won't come in for most of this delivery for the part-time part, so you're not going to hear most of the delivery again. So you might as well fill them out this year if you can. There's only slightly extra bits, and they can leave a few questions that there are extra bits for the other side progress. Just what's that, Kizzy?
I'm just trying to work out where we're heading next schedule.
You're doing good with the eyesight from that side of the room.
I can't see shit.